Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another show of the Spiritual Podcast where we talk about enlightening ideas that will change and transform your life for the better. Today, we are talking about God and the existence of Him or her. In the right corner exists me, the right side of spirituality and life, the right ideas when it comes to theism and the big God ideas. And in the left corner lays Carlos, believing in the devil and God and silly ideas. So, without further ado, my friends and ladies and gentlemen, we are going to battle this out, debate in the old fashioned way. I'm going to state my points and my arguments, and we'll see if the opposition stands true. So, I'll start off with my base argument. Yesterday, you and I, Carlos, we had a discussion or a debate privately on call, talking about God, talking about Sadhguru behind me, talking about devil worship, consecration, energy work, spirituality, and how only God can perform miracles and no human being can. And you should never bow down to anything in this world because God is the ultimate authority. And if you relinquish your values in this life, well, the demon and the devil is going to get you and you're going to perish in hell for all of eternity. Does that sound correct? Does that sum up my argument? And what do you have to say in response to that? But first and foremost, someone is speaking in the background. Maybe they want to join the debate.
You basically said everything just about right. Uh, the one thing I do want to clarify is that I don't only believe that God can do miracles. The Bible, for example, says that even the devil can do miracles. And then I would think, then by extension, anybody the devil uses to take us away from God would also have the ability to do signs and wonders. And there's many examples of the Bible where the devil promises Jesus to give him everything that he could desire if only he believes in him. And that's basically where my stance is when it comes to something like Sadhguru. Basically, even though you would say that I don't have to believe in anything that he is doing, my stance is basically that the moment that I go to purchase one of his products, it's inherent. It's inherently assumed that it's because I believe it's going to work for me. And then if it's going to work for me, then obviously that comes with the idea that it's because he's the one who consecrated it and somehow put some spiritual power into it for it to do its spiritual work. And that to me is basically considered blasphemy, almost idolatry, considering a man that can, depending on a man instead of putting my full faith on what I believe to be the Almighty Creator God. So I'm curious, there's many ways that we can go about this, but I do want to start off by asking you, do you believe in God at all? I still don't really fully understand that.
Well, I'll say it very simply and genuinely. No, I do not believe in the theistic Christian God in the way that it's portrayed. I would say absolutely not. That's a ridiculous concept. I do, however, believe in a higher power and spiritual energy, and of course, the creation somehow was created, whether that be an intelligent creator. The intelligence is in my body, it's flowing in my body. Somehow, this created. But to think that some God cares if you believe in him or not, and cares what you do in the bedroom, and really points a finger at you and tells you, you gotta believe in me, little Billy, or little Carlos, and if you don't, a hell for all of eternity, and we're gonna play a game between me and the devil, and we're gonna basically fight for who can believe in us more as some sort of a game. It's absolutely atrocious. It's so obviously a human-made concept. Why? To control people. That's what I see religion and Christianity is like.
Okay. And so, but you say you don't believe in a Christian God, but do you believe in any God? And if you do, what would you call his name, for
Well,
example?
This very loaded term, do you believe in God, should be kind of abolished, and we should be more precise. So I think that there are wise and intelligent human beings that have walked this planet. And I also think that there have been some extraterrestrial beings, maybe some divine beings that have also walked this planet that aren't human and have done some miraculous and wonderful things. Is there a God or believing in a God? That's a little bit above my pay grade as a human being. I've yet to discover that and unravel that, but obviously there's something way larger than me that's ruling and governing the entire creation. So,
So, what would your definition of God be? What would your definition of God be?
my definition of God would be the intelligent source that governs all of nature.
Would he have also created all of that exists?
Potentially, maybe so. I'm not sure if he's a he or a that, or yeah, or if he cares that humans exist or in their affairs.
Okay, so far what I'm gathering is that you do believe in a supernatural being that exists outside of physical reality. He's spiritual and he's intelligent, and I'm not sure if you think he's benevolent or evil or not, or if he's indifferent, but you do believe that he created all things. So
Somewhat,
that's
yeah.
a good
Yep.
that's a good start, I would say. So we kind of agree on that part. What is the relationship between that God and Sadhguru?
Sadhguru is just a man that has evolved himself spiritually. Mm, if he was a tool, he's the most worked out, the best tool. He's a very wise, capable, competent human being. If you ask me why is a scientist, why do you like him so much? Because a scientist invented the most things out of anyone else, discovered the most theories, performed the most mathematics, and the results are there. Similarly, if you ask me why Sadhguru, why do you like him so much? Because his spiritual competence, his wisdom to life, and his ability to use energy and technology, the spiritual technology, is so advanced, far beyond any spiritual teacher that's walked this earth. But just the same scientist, Sadhguru is also a scientist in a way.
So, what are some things that you think Sadhguru has improved or solved?
So we need to discuss this a little bit more to come back to this topic of mysticism. We need to debunk this mysticism, mystical aspect of things because this is seen as devil worship. If you can display something mystically, then I'm sure people are going to think this is the devil worship or this is some sort of magic, black magic, or whatever else. And I'm also sure that if we went back to 200 years ago or 500 years ago or longer, and I brought a cell phone and I just shined a flashlight, guaranteed they would want to burn me at the stake, at least some of them. So just because you don't understand something physically and a physical phenomenon is happening, you don't understand it, doesn't mean that it's the devil or something magical is happening. So to come back to your story, what is Sadhguru? What has he done? I think was your question, or what results does he have? Uh, well, I'll show you. This is like his masterpiece. This is like the PhD or the most important thing that he's done. Is this? If you don't know what this is called as the Dhyana Linga, which means a meditative form or a meditation machine. You go inside of this temple in South India, you close your eyes, you will become effortlessly meditative.
So, let me ask you this then. So, if you do believe in a higher power, intelligent being that created everything, why do you need Sadhguru?
Well, I can turn the same question around you, and I will. If you do believe that there's a higher power that created everything, why do you need a cell phone and the camera that you're talking to and the headphones that you're using? Why can't you just kind of telepathically or trust God or believe in God or whatever you think? Why are you using these tools? Why?
Well, when I say why are you depending on Sadhguru, I mean specifically you're depending on him for spiritual tools. You're bringing up technology, which is just hardware.
Well, yes, in a way, Sadhguru, what he's created and is also a technology. The fact that I showed you this, the Jnanalinga, the picture of the Jnanalinga, this is a technology. It's the most advanced spiritual technology that's ever been created by a single human being that's on planet Earth currently. I don't know how significant, I don't know if people understand how significant this is. And similarly, I am a vegan. I follow a vegan diet. I eat a vegan diet, which is an ethical diet. And I need advice when it comes to veganism. So I look at people like Vegan Gains and other people on YouTube because I want to gather knowledge. I want to gather the resources, make my brain think of different perspectives, and learn what to eat, what not to eat, how to maximize my diet. Similarly, when it comes to the spiritual sciences or the life science or how to live well, there are other men that have mastered this, mastered life. And I believe that man truly has mastered life to its fullest. So that's why
This
I
is one of
believe him.
the areas where I this is where my spirit automatically feels like it departs from yours. Like this is where we go our separate ways. So you look at men, certain men. So it's strange to me because, like I said, you do believe in a God, right? And so what I don't understand is why you don't just have this faith that you can have this direct connection with this higher power versus having to go through men, which to me kind of degrades or disrespects even to a certain level that higher power supposedly. Like there's a higher power, which is basically I'm sure you would agree that he's above Sadhguru, or else you wouldn't call him a higher power. But then instead of going directly to the higher power, you go to Sadhguru, and then somehow you feel like Sadhguru, I guess, does he lead you to the higher power?
I guess, kind of in a way. Yes, he does.
Yeah, and so that to me is externalizing your ability and your perception to receive whatever it is that God wants in your life. So, like, for example, the way that I look at my relationship with God is if I was to just come out of, let's say I was born in a cave and I just walked out and for the first, at some point walked out and experienced life as it is, including all of my physical desires, all of my spiritual needs, whatever they may be. I would just experience them on my own, and I would assume that that's what God is intending for me to experience. And then I could easily, through trial and error, learn what's good and bad for me. And again, I would look at that as me trusting the higher power, because if I believe He created everything, then He also created my brain. If He created my brain, then He created my logic and my ability to reason and to understand. And so I would never go to another man to get that connection to the higher power because it's like assuming that for whatever reason, this higher power decided to somehow bless this other individual more than me. And then that therefore puts me into a sort of a diminished and uh, submissive state versus what I would consider just being completely connected and completely one with God on my own, myself. Kind of dependent, like there's a dependency there. And so that's the part that upsets me about it is, so you bring up, why do I depend on God? Why do I have an issue with Sadhguru is because once that dependency is created, then there's a lot of, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. But what comes with it is then you have to buy his products, you have to buy his programs, and then all of a sudden it leaves the door open for there to just be a kind of like a conflict of interest, I would say. And I'm not saying that there is. He could have good intentions. I don't know. But it kind of leaves the open. If you're a skeptic like I am, it kind of leaves the door open for that for that to be a possibility.
Well, I would say Sadhguru definitely does have more of the source energy within him. More God is shining within him than you and I. So that's why we pay attention to him. That's why people pay attention to him. It's not because he claimed himself as Sadhguru, he wears a turban like I do, a robe, or some other reason, and he just, I don't know, scammed people into following him. Hey, if there was a way I could scam 12 million people to follow me, just come on. I'm super smart. I think people are a little bit more intelligent than that. They have reason, they have logic, they can open their eyes and see. So he wouldn't have gathered such a large following for no reason. Oh, hey, he's a scam artist, he's a guru, he's a mind manipulator. That's some serious mental tricks that he's pulled off. I need to study his mental tricks because, hey, maybe one day I'm going to go on the nefarious path and do exactly what Sadhguru is doing. Really trick a lot of people. If he tricked a lot of people, there should be evidence. Let's see. How did he trick people?
Okay. So now you're deferring to the fact that that he had a large following as evidence to his credibility, I guess. Then by that standard, Christianity would win by default because it's the largest religion in the world. And then behind it would probably be Islam. And I don't even think, if I'm not mistaken, Hinduism or Buddhism is anywhere near those two.
That's accurate what you said. That it's an indicator, first and foremost, that something is there, some value is there. Otherwise, human beings wouldn't pay attention to that, to this man. Exactly what you said. It doesn't mean that just because everybody's doing it, it means it's right. But just because everybody's doing it, at least something is there. It's evidence supporting something. Well, right now, lots of human beings are suffering animals, or killing animals, 100 billion animals losing their lives. That's a stupid way of conducting life. But hey, everybody's doing it, it means it's right. No, completely wrong. Coming back to Christianity, yes, Jesus Christ is an amazing human being, no doubt about it, and rightfully so. Lots of people should follow him, more than what naturally are. But the stories that have been written about him, or at least in the book, in the fancy book, the little big things that have been written about it, it's a little bit probably disingenuous. So Jesus Christ, of course, an amazing human being, one of the most enlightened men that's ever walked this planet Earth, and rightfully so. Because the value is there, lots of people pay attention to him. Similarly with Sadhguru, an incredibly valuable man, incredibly valuable human being, someone you should pay attention to and listen to. Because he has the technology to change your life, to transform your life. And, this metaphor analogy comes into my mind that just because there's a higher power doesn't mean that when you're driving the car, you don't pay attention to Siri. Oh, Siri, I don't care. No guidance from me. From you, you're a little pathetic machine. I'm trusting the source. You'd be foolish to do so. You need to trust these things. Oh no, you're dependent on the machine, and you have to get more little machine and a fancier machine and more add-ons. Well, yeah, that's just the nature of things. Similarly with this man, the most advanced techniques he has for human well-being, he's learned how to master this, the inside of this physiology, mastery over yoga. If you want to pursue him, he has thousands of videos for free online. And if you want to go deeper, of course, there's price to pay, naturally. You have to feed you, have to shelter you, has to exchange his energy. That's just the ebb and flow of life. He's a master at life. That's what I'm trying to say. A master at living.
So the issue that I have with him, but is the same issue I have with you, is that, and again, this is coming from me playing the devil's advocate and coming from the skepticism. Like me being a Christian, I don't want to believe in Sadhguru, right? So I do have a bit of a bias there, right? So I'm already kind of starting, not giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm coming in with, I want to basically discredit him, right? And so when I look at what you do, for example, and when I look at what he does, to me it seems very simple to decipher and to come to the conclusion of how he got the influence that he supposedly has. And what it basically seems like to me is that we all recognize human suffering is an issue that is, it's basically pandemic level, right? Like it's worldwide. Everyone, essentially almost everyone goes through it supposedly. But then there's these certain people that would call themselves gurus, and they claim to somehow have transcended that suffering. And the problem with that is that there's no way to deny or confirm that claim. And what they basically do, so like this is something that you do, and this is also something that Sadhguru does, is they take the moral high ground, or what may seem to be the moral high ground, on things that are basically almost impossible for humans to accomplish. Like, for example, ignoring your physical desires, or falling into depression, or becoming attached. Things of those nature, for example, I would say those would be the top three. I'm of the belief that that's a part of life. It's inherent. It's an inherent part of life. I think it comes with life, regardless of whether you want to experience it or not. And it's just a matter of how you deal with it. And I think what ends up happening, though, with most people is that they don't want to experience those things. So most people don't accept it as natural or something that they're willing to go through. And so they either avoid certain situations to not suffer as much as possible, or they find people like you and Sadhguru who claim to somehow have overcome those sufferings. And then you tell them to do something which is basically, from my point of view, impossible to do, which then again leads them into a life of slavery or slavitude, slavitude a word, um, to where now they're dependent on you. Because so from what I see, for example, like even when I look in your Discord or anybody that speaks to you, I've never actually seen anybody get completely like cured from whatever ailment they come to you with. They essentially come to you initially, you tell them a couple of nice things, give them a couple of good readings. They feel good about themselves for a couple of weeks, but then eventually the problems arise again. And then it may be the same problem or a different problem or whatever. And then they always have to come back to this guru character. On the other hand, Jesus Christ, for example, he does the opposite. He basically tells you that he has no solution for your suffering on this earth because you're going to suffer. And that should be one of the reasons why you should desire to seek the higher power so that you can go to the afterlife where there is where will experience this no suffering state. It's kind of like the enlightenment phase that you guys claim to be able to attain here on earth, Jesus Christ says is reserved for the afterlife. And it's also one of the things that I always tell you, right? Like, you ignore your physical reality and you try to present yourself as a spiritual being, basically. But the reality is that you're not just a spiritual being. I mean, I don't know exactly how Hindus or Buddhists believe, but Christians believe that we have spirits inside of our bodies, right? And so when the physical body perishes, our spirit will live on, and then we will dwell in a spiritual world. And then at that point, of course, you will be nothing but spiritual at that point, as long as you've what you would call gotten rid of all of your bad karma, essentially. But it seems like you're claiming to be able to do that now through reaching some form of enlightenment now. And you're claiming that you can deny your physicality now and be a spiritual being, even though you're still trapped in a physical body. And it just seems kind of like, to me, it seems like you're just taking advantage of people because you recognize they're all suffering. I believe you're also suffering, but it's like uh, it's like wolves and sheep, essentially, to me. So I look at everybody suffering, but there's some people who have the gall, or we could say that I think they're charlatans, basically, to claim that they don't experience suffering and that all you need to do is pay me $2.99 and I will show you the pathway to end your suffering. And I think it's nonsense.
Yes, I don't experience suffering anymore. Suffering is gone in me, something that's been totally cured, eradicated. And I will explain to you why and how. First, you have to define this word suffering. Suffering is something that you do with your mind. It's a mind activity. It's when your mind turns against you or at you inwardly, into you. Suffering is when you unconsciously live and react to the situations in your life. Not suffering is when you're conscious, when you're aware what you're doing, aware of your body, aware of your mind. Suffering doesn't mean that you stubbed your toe. That's physical pain. Suffering doesn't mean that when you lose your family or loved ones that you experience some chemical depression. That's natural also. Suffering means when you stub your toe, your mind turns against you. You can't, I can't even. You can't stop your mind from thinking negative thoughts or having negative loops in your mind. I can't even explain what suffering is because it's done, it's over. A long time ago, I had this. My mind was so complicated and complex, excruciating amounts of pain I had. That has been worked out, unraveled. Now it's just I'm living a human experience. I have a human experience. If someone comes and slaps me in the face, I'm not going to like it. I'm not a delusional. It's not delusion. I'm not some enlightened man. You're gonna come shit all over my house, and I'm gonna be no, I'm enlightened. No, I'm gonna deal with it appropriately. But the mental disease that's inside the mind, that's plaguing everybody, most human beings, the the self-doubt, the self-talk, the little machine that's running and ruling your mind, ruling your life, that's been stopped. No more. I'm in complete control over this one. That's how it is. That's what enlightenment is. So I claim to achieve this. I have achieved this, and rightfully so. You pay me $220, not $229.99, and I'll help you to achieve this also.
So this is one of the things that I believe, and I also believe that Jesus Christ also believed, was that helping to save people was basically the most important, valuable thing that you can do on earth. And he didn't charge a fee for it. He just basically went around almost almost as a homeless person, just giving people this message. And the message eventually ended up getting him unalived. And so he really stood to lose and sacrificed a lot for the purpose of saving souls and delivering them from their is slavitude a word? I keep coming back to that. Is slavitude a word? Slave
It sounds like it is.
sounds like a word, right? Slavery, slavitude, the mind of slavery, basically. The mind of slavery towards death, basically, is what Jesus Christ came to free us from. And so Jesus came with the message that we don't need to be afraid of death because we will ultimately transcend it as long as we live good lives. But he didn't charge anything for it. And he didn't, like, for example, I noticed that recently you started selling merchandise. And if I guarantee you that if I was to look at Sadhguru, like you sell one piece of merchandise now, as far as I know. But I guarantee you that if I look at Sadhguru's list of merchandise, it'd probably be almost endless. Probably an endless list of products that you could purchase. This one fixes this one fixes that, this one fixes the other. And it's again, it's like if you're here to save people and help people, then why don't you just work a job and then help people for free?
That's silly. That makes no sense. To go waste your energy from a 9 to 5, then come back 6 hours left. You have to shower, eat food. But hey, in the last 2 hours that you have utterly exhausted, why don't you focus on the most important task at hand, saving people's lives? No, you do this full time. And you have to get reciprocated properly. That's just the nature of things. You give and you take. Take and give. There's nothing wrong with charging people for spiritual services, spiritual activity. In a way, that's true that Jesus, there are four things that shouldn't be charged. Number one is healthcare. Number two is education, or three things. And number three is spiritual work and spiritual progress, and basically these ideas that I'm sharing with you. So I've made approximately 2,000 videos already talking about these ideas. They're, you know, the tools available at hand, the temples that you can go to in South India, especially the Dhyanalinga, which will free you from your mind suffering, guaranteed. Liberation is there. It's free. There's no cost to go there. Oh, the doors are open literally every single day. They don't ask for anything. And similarly, when Jesus walked around, he taught, and it suited him. People, I'm sure, gave him fish and gave him food to eat. That's not my lifestyle. That's not my choice. Of course, the core message is always going to be free. That's very simple. But the deeper aspects, if you want to work deeply with this, make this faster. I have to get reciprocated. How else? How else am I going to feed myself? So money isn't bad, it isn't wrong. It's not evil or the devil. Money should be reciprocated.
Yeah, and so that's what I mean. And so then when I just compare the two of you, Sadhguru included, let's say you and Sadhguru being one side and then Jesus being the other, I just see Jesus as being more self-sacrificing than you are. And he literally stood nothing to gain and everything to lose by giving his message, and he was okay with that, even if it meant cutting his life extremely short, and actually ended up being alive in a torturous manner. And that to me screams unattachment way more than anything that you or Sadhguru are doing. he was basically almost begging for people to unalive him because he knew what the repercussions were going to be for his actions, for his words, for the statements that he was making in the society that he was living at the time with the certain racial group. And he did it anyway to his own detriment. And on the flip side of that, like I said, you and Sadhguru, do you help people? Yes, but you're being helped just as equally. And so I think there's no comparison there for there to be made. I look at the two of you, you Sadhguru and Jesus, and I say, well, Jesus is a little bit more admirable in that sense.
Yeah. Well, this is what we would call a Christian virtue, is self-sacrifice. But I'm here to tell you that's not spiritual. If you start self-sacrificing yourself, you know what's going to happen? You're going to sacrifice yourself. That's all. The more you sacrifice, the less you have, less, and then you have nothing. And then where do you go? Poof, out. That's not the nature of existence. Self-sacrifice isn't a noble thing. It can be noble in situations. Like, case in point, Sadhguru, I'm making these videos absolutely free. I'm sacrificing my life, putting this out at no cost for free. These ideas go out into the public. Yes, I'm making a few dollars or a few pennies from the people that watch this. That's great. But I'm not self sacrificing. I'm not Jesus. That isn't to say that I don't do anything that's not like that. Well, talking about Sadhguru now, he's self sacrificed. Maybe did one of the most intense sacrifices, creating the Janalinga. It nearly took his life. Again, if you think of the Jesus' contribution and you think what this is, maybe if I dare to blaspheme in such a big way, this maybe is comparable. Maybe more comparable. Because this is the most enlightening, most fantastic being in an energy form, in a form. You can go and sit in front of this and meditate. So it nearly took Sadhguru's life, and people don't know how valuable this is. It's extremely valuable. But again, it doesn't mean that you doing something self-sacrificing and you're so holy. Why don't you start self-sacrificing? Why are you earning money? Give everything away and totally be a bum. That's not valuable. That's not life. You know, Jesus tossed over the tables in front of the church. That's whoa, he's so rude and so not self-sacrificing, so wanting to be doing things his own way. That was his style. He went around, didn't do business. I'm sure if he was in this age, he would be a multimillionaire for sure. He would have to be. Otherwise, how? How do you achieve this? Anyway, that's my opinion.
Let me ask you this, because we spoke about what was the word you used yesterday? What is it when the doctor gives you a fake sugar
Placebo.
placebo? So a placebo effect happens when you believe in something so much that it ends up having a physical effect on your body. How do you know that what you're experiencing from the dhyana, what do you call it? Dhyana
Dhyana
lingam?
Linga.
How do you know that what you're experiencing from the dhyana linga is not a placebo effect?
Because it's a physical phenomenon. It's not something you can fake. It's not a mental or etheric concept. It's a reality. It's a physical phenomenon. If I put you under a shower and I would ask you, how do you know you're getting wet? How do you know it's not a placebo? It's a thing that's happening. And again, this is something that needs to be experienced. This is not a belief. There's no beliefs. You go and do it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this not doesn't work. It works fantastically well. I've been there. It's a life transforming, powerful machine. How do you know that when you're driving a car, it's not a placebo, you're not getting from point A to point B because of your beliefs? No, it's happening. It's a reality. You go do it. When you do it, you'll know, wow, driving a car is phenomenal. It's an experience. Similarly with this, it's an experience, it's a phenomenon.
Let's talk about this for a second. Let's switch gears real quick. So, as you know, I recently went through a medical emergency, and I was told several times while I was in the hospital that I was going to be unalived. And I realized at that moment that being unalived is basically the most important thing to get ready for. And I believe that you should almost spend your entire life getting ready for it. Like that's basically what the purpose of life is to try to leave this earth gracefully, with faith, with hope, and as least as possible with fear, like with the most minimal amount of fear as you possibly can. Can you tell me how Sadhguru addresses this issue?
That's a very spiritual thing you said. And Sadhguru talks about death quite frequently, quite often, and he says it in a joyful manner. He laughs, and people laugh along with him. He's been saying this in every single talk that he gives. He reminds people this is not forever. And yes, this is the most spiritual thing you can contemplate and consider, is your own passing away. So Sadhguru would say this is in essence all of spirituality, is you contemplating this. This has to be realized. You're not here forever, time is ticking away. What are you doing? Um, your perception needs to be enhanced in this. So yeah, Sadhguru definitely talks about this quite often, quite frequently.
But what is his advice on how to go through it gracefully, I guess?
Well, one has to be conscious with one's own life, with the life process inside of this body. Spend time looking inwards, paying attention to this life. How is it? Sadhguru often talks about, and he uses this term a lot, you have to pay attention. Don't believe, don't unbelieve, don't think or that thing. Just look, pay attention, study. What is going on here? Don't listen to anybody's teachings. You have to pay attention to life. And luckily for you, luckily for all of us, there are tools to help you to enhance your perception. It's a tool. Just like a clothing is a tool, this microphone is a tool. The Dhyanalinga is also a tool. It's the most fantastic tool for spiritual growth. And we have it available here on planet Earth today.
So I have two comments in my I have a bunch of comments in my comment section I want to address real quick if we can, because it kind of is on topic with this. We have questions and answers saying, I'd rather be unalived as a man and as a warrior than gracefully, to be honest. And I want to talk about that really quickly because I do actually resonate with that. So I was thinking about this the other day. There's basically one of two ways that you can go when you're in this earth. You can either sit around, maybe try to be as healthy as you can, eat healthy, uh, and wait till you eventually deteriorate. And you will eventually deteriorate whether you like it or not, no matter how healthy you are. And then there will be some time period of suffering, could be months, could be years, and then you will pass. And then there is like questions and answers bringing up that he said he would rather be unalived as a warrior, which what I would take at that point is that he uses his one and only life towards the cause of fighting for something where you all of a sudden become unalived instantaneously. Obviously, in this case, if you're a warrior, but by somebody's weapon or something of that nature. And I also think about somebody like, let's say, the guy who just became president, for example. He stood for something that almost ended his life immediately. And when I think about those two different possibilities, I would much rather, just like question and answer, go as a warrior than to go slowly and excruciatingly through a long period of time, essentially not really ever standing for anything. So it's like how people say you don't really live until you're willing to be unalived for some purpose or some cause. And again, that's something where I see between Jesus and Sadhguru, I see Jesus winning because he had a message and he was willing to be unalive for it. And so, me going through what I'm going through now with my disease, for example, I didn't have any choice in this happening to me. It just came upon me one day. And now I'm going to have to spend years, years suffering. This is painful, what I'm dealing with, because my muscles are all tight. They hurt. My feet and my hands get cold because of some, I guess, nerve damage or whatever that's occurred. And my feet always feel frostbitten cold. It's embarrassing in many ways. It's it's taken away a lot of my sense of my manhood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to have to deal with this for years of my life. And now I think about it and I'm like, I wish I would have lived my life as a warrior, as questions and answers would say, to where I had a cause that I was willing to be unalive for, essentially. And that I could have just gone quickly versus living my life semi passively, not really making any major impact, not really being too polarizing in any sense, and just passing away kind of, what would you call it? Unimpressively, essentially.
You shouldn't make conclusions in your life. Conclusions are not helpful to you as a human being. This is what Sadhguru talks about often. You concluded that you live this life and either you go in a painful way or you go in some other way or you go as a warrior. Well, if you conclude something, that cuts out the other possibilities. There are other possibilities. What is the best possibility? First, let me briefly talk about Jesus. Jesus was a yogi in the inappropriate space, in an inappropriate time. If Jesus went to India, for example, in the same time, guaranteed he wouldn't be unalive, like you said. His message would be very welcomed and received. Oh, thank you. They would put him up in the appropriate pedestal, sit him up. Please tell us, enlighten us. That's exactly what he would have done. And there have been countless of yogis that did exactly that. But Jesus wandered off too far into the land where things happen, not very safe there. He said a few things, gone. Just like that. Removed very quickly. Jesus was a yogi in the wrong time. A wrong place, sorry, wrong place. So that's Jesus. And for you, my friend, or this possibility, there is another possibility of exiting or leaving. There is software in this. This life is housed by this physical body, this casing. You can exit. If you
See,
find
shut up.
if you find the doorway, if you find the exit, if you maneuver, if you untie the knots, if you turn the keys properly, you can consciously go out of this. It's possible. Men have done this. Sadhguru will do this. He will demonstrate. Better do it consciously than buy a blade or something, thinking that you're some sort of big man with testosterone. Guarantee you, if you're in that position, probably you don't want to do that. Other men have done that, and there's a reason why mind altering substances are fed to the people in the front lines. It doesn't matter how brave and a macho man you are, you're a human being. Let's not get yourself confused here. So do this graciously, gratefully, properly, consciously, and then some sort of blatant breaking yourself. It's not wise.
So, but you just said that. So essentially, what you just said is Jesus. He just so happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and then that's the only reason that his message wasn't received, and he was unalive. Whatever, whatever. I would make the argument that he specifically put himself there to make the most impact because it left no doubt that he went into the lion's den to deliver the message. It's like he went straight into the mouth of the monster and just faced it head on, right? And said, I don't care what happens to me. And so what that did was it created a movement behind him that, like I said in the beginning, has become the world's largest movement that exists. More impactful, more inspiring, more life changing than anything that comes even close to anything Sadhguru did. So when you compare the two, Sadhguru is not as impactful because of the very reason that you stated. He's not as impactful because he lived a very probably comfortable life, and then now he's living as a rich man, and then eventually he's just going to pass away, kind of, what would you call it? Like I said earlier, he's going to pass away just as a regular, just as anybody does, as the rest of the people pass away. He didn't put himself in a position to where he knew he was going to be unalive. That's way more impactful. That's way if your purpose is getting the message out, that's a much more effective way of causing that message to get out. And you can see, I mean, the results speak for themselves.
Well, first and foremost, Sadhguru consecrated the Jnanalinga. Again, I have to show this to you. This doesn't mean anything to you, but it is. This structure will stay alive for 2,500 years or longer. And it's an energy machine, it's an energy form, unlike anything else. Maybe more than the people that we're talking about, the special person that we're talking about. This will enlighten millions of beings. This will enlighten millions of people. So maybe it's a more of an impact than anyone has done in human history, let alone the fancy people that we're talking about. And yes, coming back to this, I agree 100% what you said. It's a very accurate statement. Jesus went into the lion's den and he faced it head on, and that's what happened. At the same time, if Jesus didn't get situated on that pole, probably he wouldn't be as famous. For sure, he wouldn't be famous like that. There have been lots of yogis that say the said the same message, but people kind of ignore him. Just leave him alone. He's some crazy yogi or whatever. But this person managed to get himself poofed, gone. That caused a huge wave, and rightfully so. At the same time, don't misrepresent this. Jesus didn't go in there guns blazing. Hey, look at me. What I'm gonna do. No. At the final hours, he was aware of what was happening. He could foresee certain future events. And he closed his eyes and kind of started begging, God, please give me the strength at this final hour, because what's going to happen to me is quite serious. And being the man that he is, being enlightened, being so sensitive in life, probably his body was so extremely sensitive. What you think is, I don't care, I'm a God, man of God. You nail me to the cross. It doesn't matter. No, excruciating pain. So let's not get confused here. Yes, he was there. Yes, he did that, and wrong place. More so wrong place than the wrong time. But still, if a man like that came back to the same place, do you think they would also open him with open arms? No. Only in very special parts of the planet that would happen. Still, probably in the land that's protected by the mountain and the ocean. That's the only place that people kind of stopped to worry about their survival and think about the more logical and rational parts of life. Okay, what's going on here? Only that place. Everybody else, slaughter and chaos, and that's the whole culture forever. You gotta be a warrior. You gotta pick up a sword. You gotta go guns blazing. No, that's just not secure, not safety, no survival.
So the story you're referring to, where you're saying Jesus Christ didn't go guns blazing and towards being unalived, is the story about where when he knew the time was near, he went and prayed to God and he said, uh, "If possible, let this cup be taken away from me." Meaning, like, I really don't want this to happen. But then the very next statement he made was, "However, not according to my will, but yours. Let your will be done." So he stated that, of course, as any human being, as we all would naturally feel if we knew we were about to be unalive, we wouldn't want it to happen. But then his very next statement showed his submission to the fact that he was going to be unalived, and he said, "Let not my will be done, but yours." Again, referring to the higher power. So he's submitting to the idea that, yeah, hey, the higher power has decided that we are all going to be unalived, and as much as I don't want it to be that way, he set the example that with his very next statement, with his very next sentence, that we should all also do as he did and submit to this idea that it's going to happen regardless, and that you should do your best to accept it as much as you don't want it to be. So again, I'd still say he had the option to, because all he had to do for that not to occur was to deny his teachings, deny his statements. And he never did. And so to me, when I see that story that you just tried to downplay, it to me it only makes it even more impactful because it shows how much, even though he didn't want it to happen naturally as a human fear, he still walked towards it. Maybe not, maybe not guns blazing or running towards it, but he went towards it regardless, and he ultimately got himself there, which again made his message very impactful and very relatable. Because when I was faced with that, and this is one of those things that I kind of, again, I always disagree with where you come from with these things, is that you speak from a point of view as if you've been there before, but you haven't. You're a young man, 20 something years old. I remember being your age, feeling healthy and like nothing was ever going to happen to me. But it's completely different when a doctor walks in a room and tells you that you are going to be unalived in a couple of weeks and that there's nothing that you can do about it. And I remember that in that moment, I felt exactly the way that Jesus Christ expressed himself when he prayed. And I remember basically having to give the same exact prayer in order to give myself peace. I said, "Lord, if please, if possible, let this cup be taken away from me. However, let not my will be done, but yours." And then that's ultimately what gave me peace, where I finally said, "You know what? I accept it. Let it be as it may."
I don't think Jesus Christ, his message is any different from Sadhguru's message. I think both those men are equally the same in that respect. In fact, the the full story of what you said, the Jesus Christ final moments, that brought up some things that Sadhguru has said. And it brought up pretty much every single saint and sage that's ever walked this planet has said that there is a life force, an intelligence that's ruling this body, ruling this life, ruling this mind, ruling this whole cosmos. It's right here in the background. You let it flow through you. That's the best thing you could do. That's what Jesus did. He let his life flow through. And that's why we call him God, the Son of God. Is that unique to him? Is that the only person that could be the Son of God? That's God's offspring? No. I'm also God's offspring. How good am I as God's offspring? That's decided by me. That's why you should study the Jesus teachings. That's why I should also. That man has done it fully. Similarly, Sadhguru has done it, and I have seen it firsthand. In 2019, I saw him walking on stage. I saw the light of God shining through him, through the solar plexus, actually. I knew with 100%, no shadow of a doubt, that man is enlightened. That man is as close to God or is God that anything I've ever seen. Totally purified in his sense of self. Only the light of God is shining through, nothing else. Wow. I'm willing to walk behind that man until the end of the earth or whatever. He's demonstrated the results. Similarly, uh, Jesus, also the same. And to give you some perspective to also clarify this, talking about Jesus Christ and his contribution to the world, no doubt it's one of the biggest contributions to the planet Earth that's ever been recorded, but it's not the only contribution, or maybe it's not the most biggest or impactful. Because lest we forget that a long, long, long time ago, there was a man existed in the northern part of the Himalayas, in the Himalayan mountains, a wise yogi, a sage. No one knew where he was born, no birth was recorded by him, also no old age or death. He just kind of stayed around for some time and left. Consecrated a mountain, which we know as Kailash, and taught 7 sages, 7 mystics. One of them stayed with him, one of them went down south into the southern parts of the Himalayas, one of them went to South India or India, one of them went to Africa, one of them to Asia, and one of them to South America. And they all did their respective things, and the evidence that they were there is evident. Like in Mexico, there is this famous structure that it just has Shiva's name written all over it, energetically. But the most important man that relates this story is Agastya Muni, the man that he learned from Shiva and he went into South India, or he went to India. And he said to have lived something like 400 years plus because of the amount of activity he did. He walked around every single village and every single human habitation in all of the Indian subcontinent. It took an extremely long time. And not only did he just walk there, he lived there, he established some sort of spiritual practice. Not spiritual practice that you have to believe or disbelieve or have some fancy ideas. No, how you sit, how you stand, how you properly breathe, how to eat, what to eat, how to think, how to conduct this whole life in a way that gets you closer to the source, closer to God. Not as an ideology or some belief, just an experience. And through that man, Agastya Muni, the science of spirituality has been evolved so greatly. That is the most spiritually advanced country that's ever, nothing even comes close, is India. And out of India sprouted many sages and yogis and people that understand the science of well being. And Jesus was one of them. I believe, strongly believe this, my firm conviction, that the 3 wise men that visited Jesus back in the day, who could have exported 3 wise men, as Sadhguru famously said? No one except India. So 3 wise men, sages came at the time of initiation, which was 12 years old, probably, and they took him away. All right, let's go. Where are they going to go? It's some cave in the Middle East? No, they go back to India, where the most advanced science of yoga is established. They learn, they teach him, and now, okay, go. People have been begging for someone to come and save them in this part of the land. You go and you help. And he went and helped. And he did help. I want you to remind you also to blast your beliefs right out of your mind over there. Jesus wasn't white. Hello? Jesus was a tanned man at the very least with curly hair, most likely. He was from the Middle East. He wasn't some white sage like me with long hair. Oh, no. He was a Middle Eastern man. So don't get it confused. So I hope that snapped that right out of you. Yeah, people think that
I
Jesus was
never
white.
was. I never was one to subscribe to that magazine that Jesus Christ was a Caucasian male.
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to address real quick Jack Smith in the comment section. It seems that he thought he was watching your channel. He's actually watching my channel. Jack Smith, I'd like to invite you to subscribe. Also hit that like button. Um, One thing that he says here, he says, I also too was questioning the placebo effect. some people say they don't feel anything at all when they go to the Dhyana Linga. What do you have to say about that?
Very sad. Very sad. What can I say? You have to.
I'm assuming that you're going to say that they need to increase their perception.
Uh, that's yeah. Look, this is. I know how this. Okay, yeah, yeah. You got me. Oh, very funny. Oh, it's a placebo. It makes no sense. All right, good job. Uh, that's to in a real sense. You must be the most dull human being that's ever walking this planet to be able to go in there and nothing's happening. You're the vast minority. We should have you on a podcast just to examine you. What's going on here? How did you live your life? What's your lifestyle like? You're not the majority, overwhelming majority. No, that's the rare exception. I wouldn't be talking like this if it was some placebo pill magic belief thing. It's a physical reality. It's a phenomenon. You should experience it. Hmm? Don't believe. Experience. Go. Don't even go. Watch some YouTube videos on it. If you're any sense of sane and stable in your mind, just watch some videos. Oh my God, there's something to this. Probably you're gonna think. Maybe not. I don't want to put thoughts in your mind. You go and observe. Experience it for yourself.
Okay. Is there any, I'm basically, I don't know what other topic to go to. Is there any other topic that you want to tap into real quick before we make our closing arguments?
Yeah, so to conclude, to finalize my statement here, Sadhguru is an enlightened man. He created and consecrated the Jnana Linga, which is the most fantastic structure that sits currently alive on planet Earth. It's the most phenomenal feat of architecture that any man has ever engineered. And Sadhguru, just like Jesus, both enlightened men, both enlightened beings. Jesus happened to go into the lion's den and hit a really loud sound. The gong that he hit, it reverberates 2,600 years or 2,000 years after his passing. So remarkable. And Sadhguru also, not in the loud way, it's a little bit more subtle, but he made something happen that is far more fantastic maybe than anyone can even think about. But as the years go by, people are going to understand what this is more and more. It's not a belief, it's an experience. And to close it off, yeah, simply put, there is God. Pay attention to God. Pay attention to your own life. God is within you. You can become the Son of Christ or the Son of God. And Jesus Christ is within you. And this is the second coming of Christ, is when Christ consciousness enters into you. So become Jesus.
Okay. And so to make my closing statement, basically, I would like to just invite everybody. Even Shiva admits that there is a higher power, and that I would like to just invite everyone to honor that higher power and that divine that even he just said is within you. And I would say that by that very logic, you don't need to go to or through some man in order to reach that higher power or to have some connection with it. And I would invite you to trust the higher power with all of the faculties and capabilities that he gave you with your senses and your brain and your logic and your reasoning, and just to experience life the way that it is and to just try to accept it for what it is without the necessity of having to go to some man or pay some man to teach you. Just let life be your teacher, and it's free. So that's my argument. And I think with that, we can conclude. Everybody who, thank you guys who commented, and please like the video, please subscribe. Also go to the community post section, join the Discord. If you guys want to join the conversation, we can bring you onto the podcast. Also, make sure you follow Shiva Kailash Shambho on his channel. And we will catch you on the next one.